Okay, good morning, everybody. Hope you are well. We are going to look at Sheyni in Tezaveh, which is on page 468 in the Art Scroll, chapter 28. It starts at verse 13, but we are really going to look at the breastplate of the Kohen Gadol. In this week's parsha, we have the clothes of the high priest, and we're going to look at the breastplate. Now, the breastplate, I think most people are familiar with what it looks like. There's a picture of it on page 470, and it was a square garment on which you had 12 stones, and we're going to see exactly what was written on those 12 stones. And it was folded. It was folded in two, and in between was placed what was known as the Urim V'Tumim. The Urim V'Tumim was the machine, if you like, was the I don't want to use the word, but the brains of the breastplate. And when the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, would ask a question of God, so the Urim V'Tumim would light up certain letters that were written on the stones, and that's how the Kohen, the high priest, would get his answer. So let's have a look what it says here. Chapter 28, verse 15, page 468 in the Art Scroll. You should make a breastplate of judgment, a Choshen mishpat, ma'aseh choshev, of a woven design. Ma'aseh ephod tasenu, like the craftsman of the ephod, you shall make it. Now, the ephod is the other thing we have to know for this week's parasha, and the ephod was like the apron that the Kohen Gadol wore over his tunic, and it has to have these made of these ingredients, these things: gold, turquoise, purple, scarlet wool, and linen, twisted together. You shall make it. Okay, so you got to make the breastplate. Has to be a maaseh choshev. Verse 16, square. It's got to be square, folded. It's half a cubit was its length, and its width was half a cubit, so it's square. And you have to put verse 17. You shall fill it with the stone mounting, 4 rows of stone, a row of odem, pitta, and barekes, the one row. The second row, nofech, sapeh, and yahalom. These are all names of jewels. The Artsro doesn't translate them because we're not exactly sure of the translation. I'm sure in other Chumash they do translate it. The third row, leshem, shevo, and achlama. And the fourth row, tashish, shoham, and yashbeh. So if you have 4 times 3, it's 12. 12 tribes. Yafeh. Set in gold, this should be their mountings. The stone should be according to the names of the sons of Israel, 12 according to their names, engraved like a signet ring, each according to its name shall they be for the 12 tribes. Good. So that's the first bit. You got the instruction to make the breastplate. The breastplate had 4 rows of 3 stones on which was written the name of the children of Israel. Good. So let's see now what we can do with it. And today I think we're going to, it was certainly new for me. Let's start at the beginning. V'osisa Choshen. The name for the breastplate is Choshen. The Tezaveh Kabbalah notes that the letters of the word Choshen are the same as the words Nachesh, but in a different order. Now, I thought he meant Nachash, snake, but he says no. Nachesh means it's black magic, divination. Where do we find this? In Genesis chapter 24, verse 15, when Yosef is reprimanding the brothers for having stolen, quote unquote, the golden goblet. So Yosef says, Vayomer Yosef, Yosef said to them, Maha Maaseh hazeh shall sitem. What is this act that you've done? Halo yadatim, do you not know? Ki nachesh yinachesh ish asher kamoni. Do you not realize that a man like me practices divination? So therefore, the word Choshen and Nachesh are the same letters, but in a different order. So there has to be a connection. What's the connection? Says the Tezaveh Kabbalah that both these have the same reasoning, the same idea. What is divination? Divination is to use the dark side, if you like, to use the side of impurity to reveal that which is hidden. That's what we do, right? Joseph was pretending to look at the goblet, and he could tell how old they were, etc., etc. So when someone uses the side of impurity to reveal something which is supposed to be hidden, that's nachesh. Choshen is the exact opposite. Choshen is that we use the side of purity to contact God, and He reveals that which is hidden. That's why the high priest, when the high priest has a question, he asks the Urim v'Tumim, which is asks God, and the letters light up on the breastplate that give him the answer. The most famous example that we all know is with Hannah, where he asked what the high priest asked, "What is this woman?" And the letters Chaf Shin Reish lit up, which means kosher, and he read it as shikar, that she was drunk. So therefore, that's what used to happen, and that's the connection between them. Nachesh and Choshen are both trying to reveal that which is hidden. However, one is using the powers of impurity to reveal that which is hidden, which shouldn't be revealed. Whereas on the other side, on the other hand, you have the breastplate, whose job is to reveal that which is supposed to be revealed, that God wants to be revealed. And that's why it's the same letters, but in a different order, because the outcome is the same, the revelation, but the way that we use it and the reason to use it is different. That is the Tezaveh Kabbalah on the Choshen. The Akedas Yitzchak notes that if you go through if we would understand what the stones were that were on the breastplate. Again, the breastplate was square, and there were four rows of three stones. 4 rows of three stones. Not each stone was of the same value as the other. There were some which were very precious, some which were very rare, some which were regular. Each stone was of a different value. And why is that? He asks Akedas Yitzchak. And he says, if we look at Rashi, and this is the theme which we're going to see again and again throughout today's shir. If we look at Rashi, Rashi said that the breastplate came to atone for Kilkul Hadin. Kilkul Hadin is miscarriage of justice. Right? When the dayan, when the judge perverts justice. So that breastplate which sat on the heart of the high priest, that came to atone for this miscarriage of justice. And the Akedas Yitzchak says the varying value of the stones that were on the breastplate came to show exactly that. That when people stand in front of the judge, it doesn't matter how much they were worth. It doesn't matter how important they were, how powerful they were. They all had to be, they all had to be judged fairly and favorably. And so too, it doesn't matter how much the case is. It can be a case which is $1 billion, and it can be a case of $1. They all have to be taken seriously. And that, he says, the idea of the stones being of different value altogether on the breastplate. Because the breastplate, as Rashi says, comes to atone for miscarriage of justice. And miscarriage of justice happens when you favor one side over the other. And therefore, the stones were of different value to show it doesn't matter who's standing in front of you. What matters is the facts of the case. And if one person is very important and the other person less important, one person's powerful, the other person's less powerful, one person's wealthy, the other person's poor, whatever the case may be, that is all irrelevant. And that is the idea between the breastplate, behind the fact that the breastplate, which comes to atone for miscarriage of justice, to perversion of justice, kilkul hadin, as Rashi says. Therefore, that's why the stones were of a different value. That's what it comes to represent, says the Akedas Yitzchak. He says it's also why we are told, and the verse says, that they were placed, the tribes, Reuven, Shimon, Levi, were placed in the order of their age, not in order of their importance. We know that certain tribes had much more importance. For example, Judah, as we're going to discuss, all the kings came from Judah. The tribe of Levi, you've got the Kohanim, Leviim. They had a certain standing amongst the tribes of Israel. But yet, when it came to the breastplate, they were just put in the order of age. Why? Again, for the same idea. The breastplate comes to atone for not judging favorably. Kilkul hadin. And therefore, they're in order of age to show that it's not relevant who they are, but the case in front of us, the facts of the case. And therefore, they simply were placed where Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Yisachar, Zebulun, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Yosef, Binyamin, Menashe and Ephraim, because they were in order of age, not important, not in order of their perceived importance. The Tzela Eda goes one further, and he says that the numerical value of the word Choshen Mishpat, the breastplate of justice, is 787, which is the same as the phrase Ze Mechapeh al Kilkul Hadin. This atones for miscarriage of justice. And therefore, that's what's going on with the breastplate. Apart from the practical use of communicating with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the breastplate which sat on the heart of the high priest came to atone for miscarriage of justice, and therefore built within the design of the breastplate. And that's what's so interesting to me, because I've always been fascinated in what was behind the design of the various clothes. So built into the design of the breastplate was the fact that, the stones which represent the tribes had different values, and the stones which represent the tribe were placed in order of the age of the tribe, in order that the message is clear, that when it comes to justice, when it comes to judging, we do not differentiate between people, and judgment takes place according to the facts of the case, not according to the people who are standing in front of us. Rabbi Menachem Chaim Merel writes that each tribe had a different purpose. As we just discussed, for example, the tribe of Judah were the kings, the tribe of Levi, the Kohanim, who officiated in the temple. The tribe of Yisachar and Zvulun was the partnership between commerce and learning, etc., etc. And it may have been that some of the tribes might have felt that I want to be the kings. Why is it that Yehuda was given the kings? It might have been that the division between the tribes might have left some of them feeling a bit aggrieved as to their task. And therefore, he says, that this breastplate, which was on the heart of the high priest, with the names of the tribes, had to be on the heart of the high priest, was placed there, and mustn't move from there. We're going to see later on, to teach us a very important lesson, and that is that all that God is interested in is your heart. God is interested in your intentions. Did you try your best? When you did this act, was it purely for the sake of God? As the Gemara in Menachos 110 tells us, it doesn't matter how much you have or how much you do. The most important thing is, what was your intention? Was it towards God in heaven? And therefore, that's the idea. The tribes, it doesn't matter what your particular task was. The tribe of Judah is no greater than a different tribe, just because from him come the kings, from him is Malchus, royalty. The tribe of Levi, true, the Kohanim come out from that, but that doesn't matter. Every tribe is on the heart of the high priest, because what is important is that particular task that you've been charged with, you fulfilled to the best of your ability, and that your relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, your relationship with God, is based on the heart. Rahman and Libaboy, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants the heart. That's why it's better to do a little bit, but do it well, than do a lot and not to think about what you're doing. And therefore, that's the idea, says Rabbi Merel, that the idea of the 12 tribes were on the heart of the Kohen Gadol. Why? Because each tribe had a different tafkid, had a different purpose, but they all had to know that what was important in their purpose was their heart, their intention. If I'm saying, am I doing this in order to serve God in the best way? And the Al-Shich HaKodesh adds that if we're talking about that the breastplate comes to atone for a miscarriage of justice, which means that the judge deliberately favored one party over the other, and there was a miscarriage of justice here, so then the verse has an instruction how to avoid that. And he says, if you look at the materials that went into the building of the breastplate, if we look at verse 15, what is it? You shall make a breastplate of judgment of a woven design, like the craftsman of the ephod. It was gold, turquoise, purple, scarlet wool, and linen, twisted together. In Hebrew, that is Techeles Argamon Telas Shani V'Sheish Moshzah. And says the Alshich so beautifully, if you have somebody standing in front of you, and he's wearing Techeles for Argamon, he's wearing expensive clothes made from turquoise and purple. And on the other hand, you have somebody who's Tola'as, which means torn, ragged clothes that almost make him non-human, as the Pasuk says in Tehillim in Psalms 22:7, Tola'as v'lo ish. So therefore, on the one hand, you have Techeles for Argamon. You have somebody dressed like a king. And on the other hand, you have somebody Tola'as. He almost looks not inhuman. Looks, he's disheveled. Then, and because of that, Shoni, he is different. Nonetheless, Sheish Moshzah, you have to act towards them as if they're woven together, meaning there's no difference between the two. When you weave things together, the rope is one rope, and the two are put together, and it's almost indistinguishable one from the other. And therefore, that's what he says. Techeles for Argamon, you've got one chap who's dressed like a king. The other one is Telas, dressed like almost not human. And Shani, which is from Shoni, he's different. Then you have to Sheish Mashzah. Nonetheless, if you're the judge, it's as if they're woven together. You're not allowed to differentiate between them. And finally, on this idea of not finally, but on the idea that the breastplate comes to atone for miscarriage of justice, the Kli Yakar has a beautiful idea. And that is when you look for a dayan, when you look for a judge, the verse in Shemos 18:21 tells us that there needs to be 4 qualities that we have to look for. The first one's Anshe Chayil, men of valor. Number 2, Yirei Elokim, God-fearing. Number 3, Anshe Emes, truthful people. And finally, Sone Botza, person who despises ill-gotten gains. There are 4 qualities that we need, as a result of which the shape of the breastplate is square, because it's got 4 sides. We're so used to seeing the breastplate as square that we don't ask the question, why isn't it triangle? Why isn't it round? Any other shape? Says the Kli Yakar, the idea behind it being square is because, as we've said, it comes to atone for miscarriage of justice. It comes to atone for a judge who's not doing his job properly. And therefore it's square because it's got 4 sides to remind us of the 4 qualities that we're supposed to look for in a judge: a man of valor, somebody who's God-fearing, a truthful person, and a person who despises ill-gotten gains. And therefore that's why it is square. It also had to be double. If you look in verse 16, square shall it be, folded, its length half cubit and its width half cubit. Why was it folded to double over? Says the Kli Yakar, because if I'm a judge and I'm responsible for judging incorrectly, so there's 2 problems here. The obvious problem is the person who should have won lost, but also the person who should have lost won, and that's not good for him or her, because through no fault of their own, they are now in possession of something that doesn't belong to them, and that's not good for their neshama. So therefore, the breastplate is doubled over to say to the judge, you've got a double responsibility. Not only do you have a responsibility to make sure the person who should have it has it, you've also got a responsibility to make sure the person who shouldn't have it, because both are bad for those litigants. And therefore, it's square to remind us of the 4 qualities that we should be looking for in a judge, and it's doubled over to remind the judge of his double responsibility. Not only the obvious responsibility of making sure that the person who should win wins, but the responsibility to make sure that the person who loses doesn't win, because then they are unwittingly in possession of goods or in possession of whatever it is that shouldn't belong to them. And therefore that's his double quality. So that is a few ideas related to this idea that the breastplate atones for miscarriage of justice for a judge who judges incorrectly, and therefore that is reflected in the design, in the layout of the stones, in the positioning of the tribes, in the shape of the of the breastplate, and in the fact that not, it had to be doubled. So let's now have